of Pablo Held Investigates, my podcast where I talk to my musical heroes and peers about their creative process and inspirations behind the music. In today's episode, I get to talk to the great Jochen Rueckert, a personal hero of mine and the most amazing drummer who I've been checking out since I was a teenager. I think the first record that I've heard was Paul Heller's Kaleidoskop, an amazing album that I still go back to quite regularly. And of course, Weave by Achim Kaufmann, one of my all-time favorite piano trio albums. And Jochen Rueckert's own introduction, his debut album, which is amazing. I always played along to that album and still do. He has had a big impact on the Cologne scene, on the German scene. I think overall, the whole scene of jazz and improvised music. He's an outstanding drummer, a great guy. He's always very frank in conversations. You know, he speaks his mind, and I really appreciate this. He also did it in this episode, where we talk about his personal development on the drums, how he came up in the Cologne jazz scene and made his move, and wound up playing with Marc Copland, Kurt Rosenwinkel, and lots of other great people. You know, whenever he came to Cologne, it was always a no-brainer for me and my friends to go see him. You know, whenever he would play with Route 70, that was kind of or still is a legendary band coming out of Cologne. We would always go see them and ask them questions afterwards. It was a big honor for me to finally get to play with him. I think the first time was in 2009. If you want to listen to me and Jochen playing together, you can do so on my latest album, Meet Me at the Loft, which is available on my Bandcamp page. It's me and Jochen together on one track where we play Herbie Hancock's Domo together with Ben van Gelder and Felix Henkelhausen. I really hope you enjoy this episode. It was a big pleasure for me to talk to Jochen. I wish you lots of fun with it. If you would like to support the podcast, I would like to encourage you to become a patron at patreon.com/PabloHeld. It's a growing community of supporters of the podcast, and I'm sharing exclusive content with them, like lead sheets, my notes. I'm doing online hangouts and listening parties with them. And also they get a discount on the investigation notes notebook that I've put out, which is available on my Bandcamp page. And please hit subscribe and leave a comment. I always read them. And I wish you now all the best and fun with this episode. One thing that I always admired about your playing is a sense of clarity. Even when it's very complex and going for it, which you are always in a way in terms of what you play and how you play it, when you play it. I was wondering how you worked on that.
If you strike a drum, it's a pretty, it's an event, can't be undone, and it's very sort of, it's automatically a very clear instrument to be playing, I guess, a percussive instrument like this, and you have to kind of whittle things down because we don't have chords and pitches really, or melodies. We have to, as drummers, kind of operate on a different kind of level of expression, just because we have a little bit less stuff to work with. We're the only instrument in the band that doesn't have any pitches really. So just being very clear about a statement is one way I can achieve that, I think. And it's just I was just trying to not hide behind stuff. That's maybe something that I see often in musicians that I don't enjoy listening to too much. Is trying to hide behind something, or maybe it's an insecurity thing. With clarity, it's a little bit of also like a I guess it's a stylistic decision to make, to not kind of fog things up, but really kind of go for it. I have actually no idea what I'm talking about right now.
It's fine. That's fine. Go ahead.
Pretty.
Yeah, it's totally unclear what you just said.
Yes, thank you. No,
Don't hide behind something.
I know what you mean in a way. I just try to. Maybe are you talking about like I'm playing and then I'll just do something and then it's a thing and then it stops. You know what I mean? Like it's like a clear thing.
Yeah.
It's not like this sort of.
It goes on many levels. I think it goes on many levels. It could be like a rhythmic thing that you're putting on top of something, but making that really clear. But it's also like how you time-wise also how you know. There's never a question where you mean the beat, how you mean the beat, and also that's connected to another thing that, I mean, it goes together with dynamics in a way that I feel like you spend more, or you concentrate on that more than others, have a very, very developed sense of dynamics. Within a line, within a rhythm, or within just a, I don't know, overall shape of a tune, maybe also.
Yeah, as I mentioned, maybe that's what I was trying to say. Just because we cannot, like I cannot play a chord, I can't play a pitch, per se. Like just the other things. The sense of dynamics has to be heightened just to sort of kind of compensate for that, like we're working with less, less smaller, like smaller, what's the word, palettes with, we have less colors, so we have to use them boldly in a way. Maybe that can be an explanation. Well, I'm trying to be as clear as I can when I play the drums.
Yeah.
I know.
I mean, it's also a matter of like, for some people who don't think about it as much, dynamics is a question of, am I playing too loud or or whatever. But I feel like within such a nuanced way of looking at it, there's a sense of it's not a sense of am I playing too loud or whatever, but what am I playing? What do I want to bring out and what not,
right.
And I feel like, especially already when I listen to your playing early on, I can see that already,
I think what's part of it is so if you're just your perception of what's too loud or am I playing too loud, is if you're playing something that doesn't feel good, and it doesn't really matter if it's going to be too loud or too soft, if you're playing like something that's awesome, then you might get away with being too loud.
Yeah.
When Tony Williams was playing in the 60s, this shit was loud.
Yeah.
For a while, but it was so awesome and so new that was just like, okay, it's fucking loud.
Yeah.
Or Elvin was probably pretty loud,
Yeah.
But it was so awesome, and it felt so good that's fine.
You are somebody who can play super soft but keep the energy so high, and then in the right moment you play something extremely loud. You know what I mean. But that might just be something that you want to bring out or whatever. Within, I think I've read in an interview of yours where you said like, if you play softer, then you can make the moments when you want something to be loud or to be more in front, you can make it more effective. It does have more of an effect.
There is a ceiling. I mean, there's kind of a ceiling and a floor of your dynamics, right? So if you, can't get louder than like till you break a stick. I guess, that's as loud as you can play the drums. But so that's limited, but you can always get a little bit softer, I guess, technically. It's an infinite curve. So maybe that's what I was trying to say. So you get, it's, the lower you start, the more you have
Headroom.
left to, yeah.
But how did you
I
learn?
just remember, like, how did I learn this? This is how I just listened to Brian Blade just get softer and softer and softer through the 90s, I guess, you know. Like, when we all saw him in the early 90s, he was, you know, playing like very sort of traditional, full-on drums, you know, and then just started like getting softer and softer and softer every year, you know. Like we saw him, we were like, oh, now he's just playing like, and then by the early 2000s, he was like it's like a whole different drummer altogether. It's crazy, you know. That's kind of where I was like, oh, okay, let's try that, you know. Start really soft.
But how do you maintain your technique in that soft play? Because it's easy to play something, you know, more in it maybe when it's louder, but it's really hard, I think, to if it gets softer and softer, you know.
Yeah.
To maintain everything.
I just try to practice. Softly, and I play.
Right.
I practice a lot of dynamics if I ever do practice, and then, you know, I play a lot of gigs where I just can't. I used to play a lot of gigs when I was young, where I just had to play really softly, you know, piano trios in like a restaurant or something.
Yeah.
Or, you know, like I used to play with Marc Copland's trio. I played quite, you know, fairly softly there most of the time. So much so that he was kind of like, okay, you know, like once a set, it was obvious that he was creating one space to be loud, you know, for me, just because I was playing quite softly. Yeah, I just had a lot of practice doing that, I guess, you know. A lot of people I played with where I had to play very softly, or just situations, rooms, you know, certain rooms too, like when you go to you play a tour or something, and you know, there's like the church gig or some room that's very live, it has a lot of reverb. Really, the only way to deal with that is to play as softly as you can, you know. And I've played those kind of situations often, so that definitely helped. And yeah, to maintain it, I just try, whenever I practice, I try to also practice very softly, and as well as all dynamics, you know. But yeah, I especially work on, when I practice a thing, I always try to play it at any volume I can, you know. If I've practiced a certain figure or something, I always try to make sure to have to also practice it very softly, which is usually the hardest. Just because it's like such a, the headroom thing, you know, like just hitting the drum with this much way to go to hit the drum is obviously harder than if there's more, you know, space to compensate for.
Yeah, but I mean, if you play softly, that doesn't have to necessarily say that you lose your sense of weight in the tone. Right.
It gets complicated there with the whole combination of the weight of your stick and where your drums are tuned, and it gets very complicated. But yeah, there's a certain way to tune drums that sound better this way, that way, blah blah. That's endless. It's an endless conversation, you know. Like, just if you play softer sticks or smaller sticks or thinner sticks, I guess, doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna sound lighter, you know. I mean, softer. Yeah. It's just gonna sound. It's tricky. I mean, there's certain boundaries, you know. Like you can't play like very loud with very thin sticks, because it'll not sound good. But also, it's not really that it's harder to play soft with heavier sticks, and then there's the wood. You know, there's some sticks that it's a harder wood or a softer wood. You know, those are all factors there, but. Yeah, it's a drummer theme. The people can talk about this for a long time, you know.
Yeah.
Light cymbals. You know, I have fairly light cymbals, maybe, but I used to have very dry cymbals, dry sounding cymbals, and I've changed maybe over the last maybe like 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that.
Like 14 years ago, I switched to having more cymbals that have more of a sustained sound, you know. So that makes a big difference too.
But did it go hand in hand with your decision to go to traditional grip?
A little bit, yes. It's just a little bit more of a traditional sound, you know. And I feel like there's something that happens when you play very sort of trashy or broken cymbals, you know. So I used to have a lot of old cymbals from the 50s and 60s that were maybe cracked, you know, or fixed. Yeah. I'm sure you know Jonas's cymbal that I used to have, cymbal with the big crack in it and stuff, you know. I mean, that was as bad as shape a cymbal can be in, really, you know, and still be playable. But it kind of sounded awesome, and I had this sort of like, you can really smack it, and it gets this like cool shoulder crash short thing.
Yeah, it doesn't get in the way.
Yeah, it's so it has a certain something, but I was looking for something that just carries me to the next beat a little bit more in a soft thing, you know. Like sometimes when I play a very dry room or something, very dry cymbals, it's hard to just get from one beat to the next, you know. Like I need something to ring a little bit more. It's the same shit with drums. Like if I show up and there's a rock drum set or something, it's very hard to let it breathe, you know. It's like the drummers tend to then just sort of fill it up, like, you know, the automatic thing that happens when you have a rock drum set or something that doesn't speak, you know. It's like you just start filling everything up with triplets just to you know, just to get to the next quarter note, you know,
sure,
to be honest. So it was a little bit in that vein too, just something to help me pull back a little bit, I guess. You know.
Yeah, but was it a gradual process, or because when I look at recordings or my remembrances of seeing you live, it seems like it all happened during a similar time.
Yeah, I mean, let me think. I mean, I do remember that, like, Kurt Rosenwinkel told me once, like, hey, why don't you try something that's, you know, not as dry or something. At first I was like, fuck you. But then later I was like, okay, he's got a point. And I think it was a little bit like, it was something that, you know, I knew it's nice to have like cymbals that just give you that little bit of, it's almost like a buffer or something, you know. And I felt like for a while I was kind of like, I don't have to, you know, sink to the level where I need that cymbal to help me. That kind of thing, maybe? Yeah. That's stupid. You know, it's a weird sense of pride about, I mean, also, you know, the cymbals are like really hard to find. And
sure.
You know, that particular one that Jonas has now, like, you know, I found it in like a shop in Istanbul that was selling like mostly like like metal teacups and shit, you know, like on the wall.
Wow.
And it had like, you know, so it has those big holes, you know, like there's like maybe 40 holes for rivets in there. And they had these big rivets in it that are not cymbal rivets. They're like aluminum, like way too big, you know, so the holes were way too big. And so somebody put all these rivets in there, and then they didn't like them, so they just hammered them like flat into the cymbal, including breaking the cymbal around each hole a little bit.
Yeah.
So just the way I found that cymbal was just like, Jesus Christ. I mean, it was like a miracle or something. You know? So just, you know, every drummer has this weird emotional connection to the cymbals that is, you know, it's hard to break a bond, but it's also, it's nice to, you know, try something new and be fascinated by a different aspect of cymbals. Like when I started playing cymbals that are a little more ringy, I also started going one size bigger. So I used to play most people play up to 22 inches. And so that was also the time. Also, it was the time that it became available. All of a sudden you could buy a 24-inch cymbal. But I remember maybe in the 90s, I didn't even really see any 24-inch cymbals. So that became something that was maybe more available. So it just kind of all went hand in hand. I was ready for something new too, and it was beautiful.
Did you then play that kind of cymbal with Kurt? No.
With Kurt, that was like the end of that cymbal, for example.
Right. Okay.
I mean, also, I played pretty loud with Kurt. Like there was always a thing where I feel like he wanted me to play louder. That was the loudest I've played up to that point ever. So, yeah, maybe in a way, if I would have had cymbals that had like more sustain or were more ringy, then it would have probably been louder as well, or felt louder, or maybe satisfied whatever he was looking for.
I was just curious if you would have seen any any difference in his playing that this change of cymbal maybe would have had.
Yeah.
This is why I asked.
Yeah, that's maybe a little. Yeah, I wouldn't go that far that you could be able to tell the difference. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it definitely has a. Yeah, it does sound. It can sound louder, quicker with a cymbal that's not that dry. But it's a complex thing. I used to think I had more of a clear idea of how that works, but I think it's actually more complex. Like there's something about the weight of a cymbal, but then it's really more complicated. It's about the weight, where the weight is on the cymbal. It could be like, distributed. Like if it's thinner in the bell, it does something. If the bell is a certain shape, those are all factors. So back then I just thought like, the thinner, the lighter a cymbal is weight-wise, the better the more I'm going to like it, which is not necessarily true.
Yeah.
Well, it's something you learn over the years,
when you get older. Yeah. When you reach a certain age.
You understand that. That people of a certain age.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, yeah, it sounds super corny, but it's a little bit like that.
Yeah.
I finally found out that there's some symbols I've never thought I would like that actually, I find the beauty, and then I finally recognize the beauty of these symbols.
Yeah, you've mentioned Kurt, and I know it was a special thing for you to play in his band because you have, you were seeing him at Smalls in the 90s, checking him out, and then also you've asked him to play on your first album.
Yes.
Can you maybe, tell me a little bit about you guys' history together, and also maybe we can start by when you first heard him live, and also I want to get a little bit of history on your first album, and then how you wound up playing in his band later on.
Okay, so I moved to New York, and then, I was maybe in my late teens. I might have been 19, or 20, 18, 19, 20, something like that. And I do remember I put out quite a few albums at the time that I was not super happy with, maybe. If anybody would like to look up.
Let's make a list.
At that time. But anyway,
let's make a list.
No, there was a couple of things I was like, oh boy, and then like we did that thing for, we won. What was that?
Dreiklang.
Yes, Hennessy, right? Yes, it was a German. Was it German or European? It was probably a German jazz competition thing, and it had a lot of press attached to it. And we recorded something, and I wasn't so happy with that, and so I was like hell bent on putting out something, myself. And so I kind of rushed to record something, and I wanted it to be, I kind of, at the time, I liked a lot of Criss Cross albums. Weirdly, there's that Mark Turner album, Yam Yam, and Seamus, The Call.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then what else was there? The Peter Bernstein album, stuff like that, you know. I was kind of into that stuff, so I wanted to just like, you know, do something sort of casual, and the thing at the time was to play sort of standards in odd meters, you know. That was just happening. I guess Brett Milder's first major label thing came out just around then, maybe.
It's like
Introducing
97.
Brett Milder, is that what it is? That's when that came out?
I think that's when your album came out, and introducing Brett Milder, I think,
Oh, yeah.
was earlier than that.
Like 95 maybe or so.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was, you know, kind of like when I moved to New York, that's what we were all doing. Oh, let's play this in 7, let's play that in 5, blah, 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 you know. So, yeah, so I recorded an album doing mostly that. And Kurt was on there. And we just, yeah, it was one of those, no rehearsal, just met at the studio and did it, you know.
Did you know him before?
I remember it was, yeah, I
Personally,
think so. So I used to go to Smalls, you know, almost every day anyway. And so it used to be a weekly thing. Where Kurt's band was playing maybe Tuesdays, Sammy House's band was playing Wednesdays. Maybe it was like Omer Avital's band on Thursdays, something like that. And then Friday, Saturday would switch. And so I always be there Tuesday, and I was fascinated with Kurt's writing mostly. Which is so incredible, you know. And that was kind of when he was writing, he was just basically performing all the stuff. I think maybe, in the early 90s, you know, 93, 94 or so. And he had a quintet at the time, sometimes. He'd have alto, he'd have Mark and alto. Sometimes he'd have like
alto?
Myron Walden play alto. Either Myron or Andrew, actually, Andrew D'Angelo. And then sometimes he would have piano, or keyboards even. At Smalls, mostly piano. So, yeah, I was just there all the time. So I probably talked to him. I was also drunk, and as was he probably. So you know, back then it was Smalls was a bit of a scene. You know, like you used to go. The gig would start at like 10:30. That, you know, so that was the main band would play from 10:30 to like 1:30, and then the next band would play from 2 to 4, and then there would be a jam session from 4 to 8. You know, so there was definitely a few late nights, and yeah, we all hang out. You know, Kurt would hang out and just get totally slaughtered. So I'm sure. I've met him before. Maybe I played a session with him or something. But anyway, yeah. So I called all those guys, and I kind of sang. I remember singing some of the arrangements over the phone, over like a payphone to them. I'd be like, oh, we'll play this in 7, and they were like, what? How do you play? And I would be on the phone like, oh, and yeah, I also remember Kurt being like, oh, come on, can I just play in 4? And I was like, oh, okay, let's, you know, we'll have this solo section in 7 and this in 4. But it was very casual, you know, like, I think we recorded for like 6 hours total.
Did you write out any of the arrangements? Or was it more?
No,
I
don't think so. Not really, no. Yeah, the other little arrangement there is the Pent-Up House. Is that what it is? No.
Yeah.
Oh, this is Just Friends, but that's actually Hayden's arrangement. So I did have a rehearsal with Hayden and Johannes at the time. So we just kind of played for those tunes. But yeah, so that album I put out back then. So in the 97, as you said, maybe something like that. And yeah, so that was my big moment. Breakthrough album. Yeah, it was like a Cologne label, actually. It was a fusion label at the time. The
Jazz
guy that
line?
hooked it up was Marcus Borger. Remember him?
No.
Do you know this guy?
No.
He's a piano player that was in Cologne at the time. Anyway, he was kind of running their like jazz effort or helping them book people, I guess. There's a lot of fusion stuff. I'm sure you know the Jim Beard records are on there.
Yeah.
There's a couple, right? There's some other German drummer, some woman, forget her name. But anyway, whatever. That label went under pretty quickly after that. So
Wasn't your fault, I guess.
very quick. They put my album out and immediately went bankrupt.
Yeah.
What else? What did you want to know?
Just
the early days?
your story with Kurt, how that evolved after that album, and then you wound up playing in his band.
Yeah, so he was on my album, and that was the late '90s, and then I think he called me to. I don't know, I played a lot. There was a while I played a lot of jam sessions with. There was I don't know.
Chris Bauman Chris Bauman. There's also a record with you guys together.
Kurt was on Chris Bauman's album. Yes, that was shortly after. Chris Bauman is an alto player who was also my neighbor for a while, from Philly, kind of. And then, yeah, I played a lot of sessions. There was a while we played a lot of sessions at Mike Cannon's house, who was a piano player, awesome piano player. Him and Joe Martin, and we was obsessed with learning all bebop songs. We just played like 10,000. I mean, it would be like I go there at noon and it stayed till like 5 or something, and we'd just play, medium tempo standards all day for a long time. And he had that kind of standard band for a while. At Smalls, he would just play like sort of tunes,
Yeah.
Much different than his regular band. But yeah, he never really hired me, and then I don't really know what did it, but so he moved to Zurich, and then, we're kind of friendly friends. I remember going like skiing with him and Penman when he was in Zurich, and we're just hanging out. But I think when he started calling me, must have been like 2004 or 5 or something. I don't really know what did it for him that he was finally like, I'll call Jochen, because he calls a lot of drummers. Like he went through he goes through like a lot of drummers. So I don't know what it is about drums that makes him so fickle, But so up to that point, it was always Jeff kind of, and then he had this sort of bebop band, and he would call this older gentleman. I forgot his name. He's a very simple, straight ahead pocket kind of drummer, or Joe Strasser, and I think maybe he saw me play. I feel like maybe he saw me play with Neil's band actually in Berlin, and maybe that was something where he was like, oh, okay, so Jochen. Maybe he's never really heard me in like a band setting, because his stuff is very like, it's like a thing, It's not like, let's play a few tunes, It's like you kind of have to get in there and study his music to. It's it's some different shit. So
can you maybe sorry
for a couple of gigs.
Jochen, can you elaborate on that?
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that?
His tunes are they're very strong, and some of them are much more complex than you might think, Like I remember listening to whatever Chivago or something for years, and then finally, only then I was like, oh shit, there's like one 6-bar phrase in there. Like I never noticed that, But there's a lot of music for me that something that I even listen to a lot, like I listen to a lot of like mid-60s Miles or something. I was never aware how complex that shit really is. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I wasn't quite sure what the fuck is going on. It's like, they're just sort of, But like some of the forms and stuff, You know how advanced that whole thing is.
Yeah.
So I feel like Kurt's music is a little bit like that. Like I was so familiar with it in a way, but I've never really looked. Like I never really like analyzed it or like counted out anything. You know. So I was kind of surprised, and he does have a very some things he's kind of like whatever, just play sort of like his more jazz sort of tunes. They're pretty self-explanatory. There's some hits and then a form, right? But some other tunes that are more vibey, he has a very clear idea of the certain drum part actually, or he wants it to have to be a certain way, And then there's the classic. He's actually, thank God, he could actually just sit down at the drums and play a part for you. Like I remember him doing that for a couple of songs,
Yeah.
Just sort of explaining the vibe or the basic pattern or something, For example, remember that song "Use of Light"? Yeah, it has a certain kind of, it's almost like a pattern that he wants, or at the time he wanted, and it's like that with some of the other songs, especially songs he was writing maybe just before that, that also never really made it onto records, They have a specific sort of beat. There's this one song I remember just had this weird, like, turned around rock beat. Like, you just hit the snare on the 1 and 3. It's like a backbeat, but really slow. What was that song called?
Reminds me of something on Enemies of Energy or something.
Yeah, no, it's not. This is after that. It might be a song called Undercover.
Not sure.
I'll find it. But, there were certain things that were, you had to kind of learn them, or you had to talk to him to find out what he wants, And, the weird thing was that it was always clear that, like you're just there for a little bit, The next drummer is waiting. And so, but that was cool. I was kind of like the B guy for a while. And, I was playing the kind of late end of his quintet. So there was a quintet that then had Harland in it for a bit. That's kind of when I came in. I think I was subbing either for Eric or for Jeff Ballard actually at the time. And I just, he'd call me every now and then for like a week or something. He called me once when that's actually the one with Albert that we talked about. That was when Ari was playing. And Ari's father-in-law died, and he had to like go home quickly, and I went to sub for him the last 2 gigs, something like that. But anyway, there's a lot of drummers. Kurt would, he only ever had like 2 bass players or 3 bass players in his life, but like he would switch drummers a lot. So, I was definitely sort of on the edge the whole time, and I feel a little bit like he might be. That's something that he thrives on a little bit, that sort of conflict, sort of tension that brings to. I actually don't know. Maybe he fucking hates it. It's like drummer's always like, oh shit, But he definitely wants somebody in there with a lot of confidence, maybe, Ted Poor was also playing for a while. Yeah, there's a lot of, 10,000 drummers,
Yeah.
And a lot of them, you're like, what? Like they're so different.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool because it's, it's not like he's looking for somebody who plays like Jeff Ballard, which is, that's already a tall order right there. But, he's just looking for something. What exactly that is, we don't know, but it's not like, how you would be like, oh, let's find somebody who plays like Mark Turner. You know what I mean? Like, it's not so obvious, It's much, much deeper than that. So, but anyway, so I was doing the end of the quintet, and then he kind of started that quartet with Parks for a while, and that was more or less like touring band for a while. We played a lot, just quartet with Joe Martin and Aaron Parks. And then that ended, and then he started playing a little more trio, and then I've only played in the trio once. I feel like it ended with Parks, and then he moved on from there. He's been playing with other people. Alan Mednard, was great. Now he's playing a little bit quintet again, so I don't know. But so I was doing that maybe from like 2004 or 5 through like maybe 2010 or something, 10, 11, maybe.
What would you say you've learned from him?
Well, in general, it's just from his thing, I do realize how important composition is in jazz. I mean, it's just such a strong thing, like his tunes are. I remember I saw it a little bit again. It was like Orlando and Parks, and that was just after Star of Jupiter came out. And I learned all the songs, and I talked to Orlando, and I was like, oh, this is a little bit like playing like some of the tunes are kind of like playing a pop tune. Just kind of play a thing, like there's parts, kind of like the rock beat or whatever, And I was like, oh, this is a bit like playing a pop gig, huh? And like Orlando was like, yeah, but the tunes are so nice. It's totally fine, that whole thing about like, oh, I'm going to play my solo and, do something different every night. That kind of, that was sort of the attitude I had when I was younger. I was like, oh, jazz has to, be different, and improvisation, blah, 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 all that stuff. It's all, if you write tunes like Kurt, it really doesn't really matter, So that's maybe what I learned, the importance of composition.
Yeah. I want to go back a little bit again to one of my all-time favorite records, and we've talked about this before, but I want to go there again. Yeah, it's Weave by Achim Kaufmann.
I can't remember anything, dude. I cannot remember anything about that.
Well,
I can barely remember anything about that time period.
Why is that, though?
It's because I'm old. My brain doesn't work anymore. I can't remember shit. No, it's very, I do remember. I somehow cannot picture being in the studio or something. I do remember rehearsing for it. I remember when he wrote those tunes, and does he like play? There is something where he plays it forwards and backwards, and I remember working that out in rehearsals. And
how was he when you guys rehearsed? Was he very hands-on, or what was the rehearsal process like?
Achim, I mean, back in the day, he was super. I don't want to say shy, but I mean, it's borderline self-harmingly, like, it's like if he wasn't 100% convinced of something, he would just not know what to do. He's the exact opposite of somebody who'd be like, it'll be fine. It'll be fine in the studio. He's exact opposite. And I remember Ingmar, the bass player, was like really into it. And he was like, oh, this is great. What are you talking about? He would be like all down on himself. It's like, oh, this song is corny, or I don't know if this is good. And Ingmar would be very encouraging, and you could definitely see the struggle with him, Achim, at the time. And I think, I guess he's gone more abstract maybe since then in his career and his playing in general, right? Would that be a fair assessment?
Yeah,
it's definitely gone to the dark side, as we like to say here in New York. He doesn't respect the tradition as much as he yeah, you know, I feel like maybe that was, and that's probably why there's quite a lot of people I know that like that record a lot, because it's just on that verge there of somebody who's coming from a very strong, you know, rhythmic and harmonic sensibility, who's really pushing to go away from it, you know.
Right. I
feel
remember
like he was pushing, he wanted to go more into out territory, but he was sort of bound by this, you know, just playing a trio, and he just maybe didn't want to go all the way there. And so that's maybe why I know so many musicians that like that album a lot, that are maybe way more traditional than in general in taste than he is.
I mean,
maybe.
just in general, it's an incredible album, but also a great trio album. I really love the way you dance around each other musically, and I feel like for right now already a lot of generations, it has been, you know, very, you know,
so old.
yeah, this is the whole point of this
old.
interview. I want to make you feel old. And have everybody realize it, how old you are. No, but I mean, you were super young when you did it. When you did that album. So no, but I mean, it's a very important album for a lot of pianists for sure, but also, you know, lots of other guys. I was wondering how. No, go ahead.
Yeah, go.
No.
I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember what. So we recorded in Cologne, right?
No, I think you recorded at that studio
Bonn,
with Holfur Wagnuson, the guy.
Oh.
Isn't it the studio
Hanover.
which? Yeah, Hanover. I think so.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see. Okay, now I remember. Yeah, I'm trying to even like remember what drum set I had at the time. You know, stupid shit like that.
Yeah.
Like. I think that was around the time when I just figured out like very basic things. Like, you know, when I was a teenager, I had a completely wrong idea of what a jazz drum set looks like. It's completely misinformed. Like, I thought it was supposed to like be like a 16-inch bass drum and like a 10-inch, you know, just wrong. Like it was all wrong. I was playing these weird fucking like sticks that were like bowling pin shaped, weird. I mean, everything was just wrong. I mean, wrong, you know. Just because there was nobody who would just sit me down and be like, okay, if you want the drum sound somewhere between 1950 and 1966, you buy, you know, an 18-inch bass drum and 12.
Right.
That somehow, that person, I didn't meet that person in Bergisch Gladbach in 1988, you know. So I was, you know, and I remember just then I was like, when I, you know, I must have been like 18, 19, remember I just started going to Cologne Conservatory, right? I started going there when I was 17. So I just figured shit out. Like, so I then remember I saw like George Redman came to Stuttgart, right? And I was like, oh, fuck. You know, 18-inch bass drum, you know. Saw like Kenny Garrett also with Brian, or like, you know, and then I saw Bill Stewart. I was like, oh, they're all playing the 18-inch bass drum, huh? You know, and that's when like a lot of stuff changed for me around that time. Just figuring very basic jazz things out, you know, about sound, and I had these weird ideas about what's improvised and what's not, like just unicorns, you know. I was like, oh, you know. I remember being a teenager and I listened to something that was obviously all written out or something, or some part, or a cued part or something, and I thought it was like improvised somehow. Shit like that, you know. So I just figured out, so I was kind of really excited about it. And so then there's Achim, who's basically going the other way, right? So I'm just coming from like all this weirdness, and then finally I've figured out how to get a jazz drum set sound. And he's already knows how to get, like a straight ahead jazz piano sound. Now he's on the other projector. He wants to go out, So it was a weird time that we'd meet,
Mm-hmm.
But then also I remember I was very good at like reading. I was fairly good at reading music and that kind of thing, or playing in odd meters, reading complicated charts, that kind of thing. So that helped, in a way. It was that weird cross section there, maybe.
What did you do back then to get better at reading and all or playing odd meters?
Well, I just remember a few things happened. What happened was I met Niels Wahlgren, and he would just be like, "Oh, let's try this fucking song that goes like 11/8, 4/4, 7/8, 3/4, 5/8, 2/4, and then it goes in triplets to anticipated one from the second 11/8 bar." And I was like, "Whoa." So I started playing with him, and I really was like, I have to practice this. So that's when I really sat down and dealt with, like odd meters, as in like, not like a groovy 5/4 song or something, Like that kind of shit was happening at the time. There was, there was like people playing a standard and 7, and there was whatever, like a Schofield 5/4 boogaloo kind of thing, that kind of stuff, and some other things that I didn't discover till later, and there's all that stuff from the 60s with some odd meters and 70s, and so I had to kind of sit down and study that, and that's kind of also got my fill of that kind of music. Like Niels was really into anything that sort of Jim Black was playing drums on, and him, and they were playing all these complicated forms and stuff, and he was into music from the Balkans, that was in like a lot of sort of like a fast eighth note thing, like a 9/8 or 11/8, and like a fast like tick, that kind of thing. So I just kind of had to study that for a little bit. I mean, I wanted to study that, so I did that maybe for a year or so. Really looked into that kind of stuff. And so and then I remember Achim was writing some of that kind of stuff too, or something that had some roots in that kind of complicated, rhythmically complicated, complex stuff.
I remember. I mean,
so that's how that happened.
Especially in that time, there wasn't a lot of drummers playing this type of music who were liberating the hi-hat in a way that you were. I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but it feels like when I listen to Weave or you with Route 70 or something, but especially already in the early stuff of yours, I hear a sense of liberation. Of course, in all the limbs, but the thing that is surprising to me the most somehow is the hi-hat.
Oh yeah, so I mean, if you know that the left foot is the, it's the like asshole of the limbs, right? It's just sucks. Like, I mean, and also it sucks the limb itself, but also the hi-hat itself is a stupid. The fucking two things with a spring and the stick in the. I mean, the way you attach the thing to it's just fucking. I mean, it's so stupid. So just to play something fast on a hi-hat is already not possible. Like on a bass drum, you can go like, hi-hat's like, so just to compensate for that, I remember. So I had a drum teacher when I was like, a kid, basically. When I started to learn drums, he was very like, he was like into. What do you call it? Like just sort of being independent, limb independence or rhythmic independence. So he kind of I remember he made me do everything I did with the left hand, And actually at the time I was kind of trying to play ambidextrously. I was playing the right cymbal with the left, as well as the right hand. I would go back and forth. So there was a theme of trying to all limbs are created equal thing. Left limbs matter. Left foot matters. But yeah, I mean, so just the limitations of the physical limitations of the hi-hats itself is tricky, So I do remember specifically trying to, whatever I try, the stupid things where you go through the paradiddles or any kind of combination of a number of beats, you could divide them up, and so even though your drummers do that shit where they play whatever, they substitute one hand with the other limb, or like there'd be some black and white figure where one part is the one hand and the other one is the bass drum. That's when you listen to like fusion drumming, that's it's basically the bass drum and the right hand together against the left hand playing sort of paradiddle string of 16th notes. That's that, so I was just trying to break that up and also do that with the left foot. So I do remember practicing that a lot. And then actually the other thing at the time, Bill Stewart was also somebody that kind of did a lot of stuff with the hi-hat that was new, like he would do, remember how at that time where he would just collect like
I was just going to say that,
spasm, that thing,
But during a slow swing or something,
wow.
During a slow swing, and then but have a
for
rapid
a while,
higher.
It was like, yeah. So I think I actually remember asking him what is that? Yes, I took one lesson with Bill once.
Yeah.
And I remember I went to his house and it was kind of like, I just had the fortune to see him play a lot close up. You go to the Vanguard or something and you sit next to the drums. So it wasn't really I was like, what the fuck, what is that you're doing with the foot? And he's like, I don't know, I just go, and then he just sits down and he goes, I just do that. And I go okay, there's no secret there. It's just okay, you just go as fast as you can, try to, to invoke that spasm, muscle frequency thing in their foot. But those kind of things. So he does this thing where he has a ostinato thing going with the hi-hat on the off beats, or he does a thing where he has a thing going with he plays dotted quarter notes in the hi-hat, like a figure underneath, and then he'll solo on top. That kind of stuff as an independent of your limbs, which is typically something where you would practice with your hi-hat on 2 and 4, and then you would solo on top. That most jazz drummers can do, or they can, keep the time going and then sort of solo with the other limbs. So that he extended that a little bit, and that was a thing that happened at the time as well. That cued me to just focus a little bit more on the hi-hat, just to give it a little bit more. And then I mean, not just him, but then obviously everybody before that too. Tony did a lot, and then actually Jack DeJohnette is also somebody who does a lot of shit with the hi-hat. So yeah, that's where I got inspired to do more hi-hat stuff.
Yeah. Another important record for me, I don't know if I ever told you this, but it's Paul Heller's record with the same rhythm section. It's called Kaleidoskop. And I still listen to that record, and I really love that album.
That one I haven't listened to in a long time.
I think that was recorded at Cornet Studios in Cologne.
Right. Hilarious. Good times. I mean, I do have to say, I mean, I don't know, but I'm a certain age now where that shit gets pretty blurry from back then. Unfortunately, it's fading quickly.
Okay, so
I know that I did not have a whole lot of sex back then. I just remember that one. It's not a whole.
Is that related to those albums? Do you think?
Yeah, it's the response from the from the female listenership was underwhelming. No, but I do remember. I do remember this one. We had so then with Achim, right? With Achim. We played a couple of gigs, and he put out the album. He tried to book something. He booked like a workshop somewhere. I can't remember where it was. Maybe it was Mannheim or Hanover or something. And we had like a piano trio workshop. And we went there, and not a single person showed up. Not one person. We just went to the like big auditorium. We took a fucking train at like 6 a.m, and we got there. And then we set up, and it was like 9:30, and then not one person showed up. And then we just left.
Without getting paid, obviously.
No, we did get paid.
Great.
Yeah. For high school. I mean, it was like a. Like a music college.
Right.
Yeah, that's funny.
But I mean, okay, one last try. Let's go.
Okay.
Maybe.
What are you looking for?
I mean, I'm looking for stories from back in the days where before you went to New York, or during that period where you went back and forth. There are certain bands that, certain records like Achim and Paul's that are really, really important for me. So I'm trying to get a little bit more of a
it's not
vibe.
all about you, okay? Millennials.
Sure.
Little piano player there.
Sorry.
No, I'll try to remember. But I'm just remembering that time in general is so out for me because everything changed so much. As in there was just the internet. I do remember that was one of the first times I got an email address back then. That was right when I was 18, 19. And I mean, just the way things changed, it was crazy. I remember just like lugging CDs, just like suitcases full of CDs, back and forth between New York and Cologne. It was crazy. Like having to decide, like, I can only take whatever 100 CDs. I have to pick 100 out of these 300 CDs that I have. Yeah. And then that's before they figured out those like cases.
Sure,
you just put you don't have to. I just remember like buying like a shitty like a sack kind of thing, like a like a Siemens like sack thing, and just putting like 100 CDs in there, and I'm about to go to the airport, and it's just like it rips in the trunk of the cab, and I just like I show up at the airport just holding like CDs and like in plastic bags. All that shit is so far. It's so hard to imagine how that was, or like the whole phone thing, like, I remember like you have to call people and then get them on the phone at the time and then talk to, what I mean? Like I was trying to sublet always, right? So I always had to like call, and I was massively nervous because I would have to call like, whatever, like I'd have to call like Mark Turner to get the keys to Jorge Rossi's apartment or something, So it's just like, I'll have to fucking call Mark Turner. That kind of thing. It's not like you just send them an email, a text message.
Yeah.
You have to actually call like 18 times till the motherfucker picked up, and then that kind of stuff. It's so hard for me to imagine it. But so that was kind of the time back then.
Okay. Who were some of the guys who took you under their wing when you came over then the first time to New York, that kind of showed you around, and I don't know how it felt for you actually to go there. Were you scared?
No, I mean I was in a way. I mean I was just like very fulfilled musically, as in like I finally found things I really like. I remember being in Cologne, and there was that weird thing how things that were like rooted in tradition were like very corny and not done very well or something. But me being interested in that tradition and then just sort of being in New York and seeing it done better, or hearing it just in a way that I liked it, I was just very happy, you know. And just being able to see my favorite music like played live and watch it evolve like right there, you know, was amazing. Like I was just like in a way very happy. Not that you would, you know, be able to tell from my facial expressions, but in a way I was very happy. And then also, yeah, you know, it was just I feel like I was very green in the way that probably if I now met myself when I was 19, I would just be like, Jesus, learn some English, you know. Like, I mean, my English must have been terrible. I probably had a really horrible accent, and I was probably exactly that annoying guy that's hanging out and asking questions about drums and, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like that guy, and misunderstanding things and not really knowing what the etiquettes are, you know. You know, new to the States. And in a way, sometimes some people like that, you know, that you're not that sort of person that's so like, yeah, you're just not American, like you don't really know what's going on. So there's, I kind of became friends with Jerome Sebag, who's a tenor player from France, and then a bunch of people that were sort of in and around his apartment. So Matt Penman was one of the first people I kind of hooked up with there. And then this guy, Greg Toohey, who was another Kiwi, his friend, guitar player. Pete Rendy, those are all, Darren Beckett is a drummer he's Northern Ireland. Actually studied in Cologne for a year.
Yeah.
Those kind of the people that I hung out with a lot. I mean, mostly because I then finally started getting into the loop of sort of subletting in their apartments a lot. I also kind of became friends with Jesse Murphy, the bass player, and those kind of people. They're a little bit older than me, actually. Yeah, those are kind of the people. Of course, there was a few Germans that were helpful, you know. Remember Heinrich Körberling used to live there? I used to sublet his apartment. Actually, on that CD, I'm playing some of his cymbals. And who else? Yeah, there was a few Germans. Oh, Simon Nabatoff, obviously. So he used to still have an apartment there and used to let me crash there very kindly. And you know, although he was a little bit more in the more sort of modern kind of scene that I wasn't so into, but you know, he showed me a lot of stuff. Yeah, so those are the people I hung out with most. And yeah, I just remember, you know, just still playing a lot of sessions. Basically, we just go play sessions all the time, as in sessions at somebody's house. We just go to somebody's house and play, and that's how I basically met most of the people. And then, you know, the first actual real gig I got was Marc Copland's band, right? So I played with Drew Gress, with somebody else, some Canadian piano player, can't quite remember. And then somehow, so Drew was on that gig, and then he liked the way I played, and he somehow recommended me to Marc. And Marc called me when Marc used to have a steady gig Mondays at Cleopatra's Needle. And I guess he was it was Bill Stewart at the time, and then he couldn't make it often, so then he started calling me to sub. And that's how I started playing with Marc.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically how you met a lot of people. Just play with one person who then likes it and then recommends it to somebody else. So those are kind of the...
Can you tell me how it feels for you to play with Drew Gress and what you've learned from him, playing with him?
Well, Drew is another one that's right there on that intersection, right? Because he plays with a lot of people that write complex music, but he also is a very good straight ahead guy, and he is, I mean, but whatever he does, he plays it with gusto.
Yep.
And yeah, like back then, I didn't really think about it. I guess I was a little bit in bass player heaven, It's like, I just remember like coming to New York and all of a sudden, it was every bass player was amazing, I was like, for a drummer, it's a big deal. Like, basically, this whole time I was like, oh, I'm trying to swing, and it's not working. and then, eventually I played with the right bass player, and they were really swinging, and that kind of pulled me along. And I was like, oh, that's
how it goes, yeah.
It was a big moment where I was like, oh, you know what I mean? Like when it's like the first time you eat pasta in Italy or something, you're like, oh, that's what it's supposed to be like.
Can you explain the difference?
Yeah, it's just the beat, it's just the way where they put the beat, I guess. Yeah, when you're playing, swinging to it. Yeah.
What do you expect from a band leader? Like you booked for a gig or for a tour or for a recording, what is important to you?
Yeah. I'm the sideman?
Yeah.
Okay. You have I think the most important thing is that you have a clear idea of what you want to achieve. Like, what do you want to do? I mean, it's such a basic, stupid thing to say, but that's often my biggest complaint when I'm in a sideman and the person doesn't really know what they're trying to do, And often that comes in many flavors. Like it comes in the oh, you guys just do whatever you want, or I wrote this bass line, but if you want to play something that's cooler, then do that kind of thing, But it's also all good. But if you want to just go for it and let everybody do their thing, that's also a vision that you can have, and that's cool. But if you don't, often I feel like there's a lack of vision of what am I shooting for,
Yeah.
So that's one of the most important things. Is have a vision of what your music is going to sound like, and then maybe the means to get there, and then hopefully have a common denominator with what I like as well. That's what I'm looking for in a band leader.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, that's the musical thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then there's many. I mean, apart from the business side of things, there's many other things of trust and reliability that you need from a band leader.
How about fellow musicians? What do you expect from them? If in any situation, when you play with somebody, what are you looking for in people you play with, and also, what do you expect from them?
Yeah, well, I expect a minimum of. I'm hoping for a minimum of excitability. Excitement about playing music in general. A platform of experience, and I do enjoy personalities, strong personalities. Is that a good answer? I don't know.
It's great.
There's a lot of people I play with. It's kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, it's fine. Like I'm not looking for fine. I'm looking for oh wow, that guy really plays like he's crazy, or He likes to play very mellow, or something that's like. It's very these days. I mean, there's a lot of people that just play kind of, it's just all fairly the same or something.
Sure.
It's easy to get caught up in this sort of standard jazz person thing.
What do you think that is?
Jazz education, I think, is a big part to blame. Yeah. A general just culture and just people being just sucking. Like the more time seems to pass, the more young people seem to just be like so lame. In my view, from my view as an old person, it's just like, wow, I'm not that old guy, but I've listened to that a lot when I was young, like with musicians that are even just like 10, 15 years older than me. Like I listened to a lot of like, wow, like there's a lot of really sort of maybe very inexperienced or like shy or just like there's a lot of hegemony, is that a word? It's just very uniform. You know what I mean? Like I feel like the younger the musician, the more uniform it becomes, as a not just as a trend in general. If I have to like, look at the average personality of a musician of a certain age, I feel like it's getting more uniform. I think maybe. I don't see that many crazy people anymore.
Yeah.
And I think crazy people are helpful. In a way, Or just crazy, as in crazy, even just musically or whatever.
Yeah. Having a courage to be themselves a little bit more, I guess.
Yeah, but then also having an interesting self, I hear that a lot with people. So to go to you do a jazz workshop and just be yourself, but don't suck. Like don't, like if you're a boring person, then don't be yourself, be more interesting. You know what I mean? Like people are so, it's a typical thing of like, there's a lot of people I tell like, oh, you really have to study or whatever, young musicians often you tell them that they really have to check out the basics, because they're lacking. But then after you've done that, then you have to be interesting on top of that, Then you have to be, right? So it's complicated. Often it's hard to give the right message when I have to teach, for example. But I just feel like there's this weird mediocrity that I encounter. Where people are just sort of fine, You're like, okay, they're playing okay, but there's nothing memorable about it. So I think some of that is the fault of, not the fault, it's just the result of very widely available jazz education, the way it is right now. It's just like it's like a human centipede. It's like one person shitting into the next person's mouth and then digesting it and then just keeps going. It's like a conga line of like like I go to the music school and then I learn to be a mediocre, shitty jazz musician. And then I get a job at the other music school and then I teach them the next round. Watered down shit. That's I think that's how that happens, maybe. Maybe.
So in a way, also like people are not striving anymore or they're satisfied with a certain amount of skill or experience or.
I don't know what it is. I don't know. I mean, now inevitably the discussion about is it better or worse that you can now. That you now have all music at your fingertips for free,
Right.
it's inevitably tied in there probably, you know, like it's just you might be more informed, but the passion for each thing might be less. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so too.
I can't quite figure it out, but it's definitely clear that those two things are related, you know. Instant gratification, you know.
I mean,
then comes the story when you go like, when I had to watch I had to go to my grandpa's house and dig out the LP from under his grave. And my first cymbal, John Whalen always says, I used to only play cymbals that I found under a sleeping woman at a port in Kadikur in Istanbul. After, to be honest, under a sleeping witch. With like nose hair. It was like hair coming out of a single mole on her nose, sprouting. But you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure those are related. I don't know what the answer is, but there's definitely no going back from having all music at your fingertips of it. I just remember like I didn't fucking have like a video of Elvin Jones before. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
Like the first time I saw a video of Elvin Jones playing drums, I was like,
"This is how it looks." Yeah.
And there was like a 3-minute clip or something that was going on. It's funny.
Yeah. I remember one guy who had a DVD. It was already DVD, but DVD of that Karlsruhe concert of Miles 67.
Yeah.
And I would always call him like, "Can you make me a copy? Can you make me a, you know?"
Yeah, see, this is how I got that tape. You know how I got that tape? I took my VCR I took my dad's VCR. I didn't have a VCR. And then I took the subway to Cologne. And then I think Bruno Leicht, remember him? Yep. Trumpet player. He had that tape. And then I went there and I dubbed from one to the other.
Yep.
Copied it. Incredibly bad. That's already like the 5th copy of it or something.
Sure, yeah.
I remember how I got that tape. Like I took the subway with a VCR under my arm.
Yeah.
To make a copy, you know. It's just, I mean, I don't know if I appreciate it more now because of that. I don't know.
Well, in a way, I still remember my story with it and my passion for it. And then first, because and the first time really digging into, I fall in love too easily and what the guys are doing, you know, with the super slow ballad time, but then building on top of that and the intro of Herbie and Miles and stuff. I can dig into that, to those memories and emotions. But still, I go like, with one click I could see it on YouTube right now, but I don't have to, in a way. You know what I mean? There's always already like...
Hey, by the way, that's exactly what I was talking about. So when I listen to that, with then they're playing like double time and then quadruple time or whatever over a ballad like that, I never thought about that, right? Like, because I listened to it like 1,000 times. Like, that band I listened to a lot. You know? Yeah. And
me too.
Not even like, I mean, now we have all those bootlegs and stuff, but back then, you know, there was only a few, you know. I just listened to like 4 and More and whatever, that tape, and there was a couple of other things I had, but it wasn't that much, you know. But so I never really understood that it's really like once I actually, and that's not that long ago that I actually sat down and I was like, well, what is the form here? Like, and I was like, oh, it's super slow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I never ever even thought about that.
Yeah.
You know, or that, whatever. Like just now, I ever looked at what they're doing on Dolores or all that stuff. You know, like I never really thought about that.
Yeah.
And I also never really thought like, oh, are they really playing a form or not, or they just fucking run? I was always kind of like, yeah, probably-ish, you know, whatever, which is still true, but you know, it's much more complicated than that, you know.
Yeah.
It's not even like, are they trying to play a form? You know, are they like purposefully leaving the form, all that stuff, I never really thought about it. That's just, that's how that band sounds,
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what I meant when I was like, with Kurt's music, like, I was just like, oh, okay, that's how that song goes. I was never aware that it's actually, a thing, or there's all these little things that you didn't know that are more complex than I thought.
I mean, with all great
like
stuff.
I'm playing a ballad in quadruple time, and when you actually try to sing the melody while you play that, it's pretty hard.
Super hard. Also on My Funny Valentine or something like that, the record, I get lost still, when I'm trying to follow the form of Stella by Starlight in the super slow.
It's
it's
crazy, man. Yeah. But anyway, that's what I meant.
Yeah. But I mean, you also contributed in some regard to jazz education by your own video, and I really liked your approach
I'm just trying to make an honest buck here.
No, I really liked your approach of going and taking the other route and saying, this is what you shouldn't do. I really like that. Stuff not to do.
Yeah, I mean, right. Yeah, that should be like a whole ongoing series. No, but the videos thing, it was just, I need to make money too, it's literally the decision to do that was like, it became popular. Everybody was, there was like a few companies that are doing that, and this is 4 years ago, so it's Patreon maybe wasn't even around at the time.
Yeah.
And I have this other friend, I play tennis with a sound engineer, just by chance. He's like a big time pop like sound engineer, and he kind of wants to quit because he just flies show to show, and he runs like basically, he plays with like, he like makes like St. Vincent or some like modern pop band, something like that, and it's all the same. There's a click track, and basically he just has to set it and forget it, But yeah, there's a lot of like, he doesn't want to fucking do it anymore, So he's looked into that a lot, like trying to sell online courses, and he's the one that inspired me to do it, but then he got much deeper into it because the way you make money with these things is just, if you really milk it, is just by selling subscriptions and like basically renting people knowledge. But just as we've seen, everything's gone to shit. Like now you can't just buy Photoshop anymore. Like now you have to get a license for it. All that shit is just like you getting screwed in the ass. Like no publication, they're just like all those companies figured that out. That I remember, like, you used to buy a program and then it was yours, and then if there was an update, maybe you'll have to give $50. Yeah, or you could buy all the updates. Exactly. You remember that shit when you could buy a Fly Anywhere American Airlines ticket for like $500,000 or something, and they've been spending the last 10 years trying to like sue people out of those tickets, because that kind of thing. So, that's exactly what I didn't want to do. I do want to make money, but I also do not want to fucking sit there and then create more content to keep people on the subscription plan and the landing page on your website, mining email edit. That's exactly what I don't want to do. So I was like, okay, let me just at least do it in the least possible amount of involvement. How can I phone it in as much as I can?
Right.
But then also be able to say, okay, it's, I'm not ashamed of it, because like I could see how it could be quite embarrassing or something. So I was trying to make it at least, it's still very embarrassing. Actually, it's quite embarrassing. Editing those things was some of the worst time I've ever had in my whole life. And I've had 2 colonoscopies so far. So this worse than a colonoscopy is watching myself talk about the symbol right pattern and then editing the audio. That was it's fucking torture. So, but so I did it, and my neighbor is a cameraman, so we just did the whole thing here in the living room, in the spare bedroom, and so it's done. And that's how I wanted to do it. I just wanted to do it once, and then now I sell it, and I don't have to do anything. You know?
Yeah.
So people still buy it sometimes, you know. And I like, you know, it's not like I put one ad up once, and it just runs. Like I put like remember back in the day when Facebook ads were still working? So I have like a Facebook ad that's just on for like $10 a month.
Huh.
So every now and then some guy buys that I never heard of, you know.
Yeah.
So it's still working, you know. So it's okay. I feel it's like it could have been even easier if I did it with whatever my masterclass at one of those guys, because then you don't have to edit it.
Yeah.
But
but
they're slowly going into that rental thing. He's still okay. You can still buy it and then own it.
But I mean, it's related to something that I wanted to talk to you. Is that do-it-yourself vibe is something that you've, you know, that is somehow that I associate with you, you know, for as long as I know you, you know. And it takes, you know, it takes form in, you know, okay, I'm going to write a book, you know, or I'm going to put out my record like I wanted, you know, with how I wanted to look or whatever. And then you do your own masterclass videos. I was wondering how that came to be, that you know, that decision of, okay, nobody's going to do it, or
here it is. Everybody sucks at doing shit, and I always feel like I can do it better. That's how it is. You know, like I see those covers, the jazz covers, you know, CDs. They suck. You know, like I think they're terrible most of the time. Yeah. So I was like, you know, if I put my own CD out, I can probably, you know. That said, there's many mistakes I've made. You know, I've made some horrible mistakes. You know, you know, I'm very unhappy with some decisions, you know, on some albums. Mm-hmm. But I think overall, it's better to own that than to be angry at whatever your record company.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I mean, there's this. You know, when we're talking about Pierrette or something, I know you're much more tight with them. You know, but like so, just like the cover art or like the way they do it and the way they mix it, it was just not my cup of tea. You know, and so just having to deal with that, I'd rather than just do it myself and make mistakes as well. You know? The same with whatever, with booking, or you know, maybe there's a few things that I've really bungled, like mastering or something is a tricky. I'm still dealing with mastering. Like I'm trying to master like the electronic thing I sent you.
Yeah.
Like I'm mastering it right now. That's a tricky one, you know. Like, but I just don't want to send it to some guy and then wait 8 weeks and go back and forth, you know. Like, so I think I can do it myself, but some things are just not that hard, you know. And it's more about artistic vision, maybe. Mm-hmm. I think in some things like album cover art, your artistic vision might outstrip the skill set you have easily, you know. Like I can probably make an album, or not make it, but pick an album cover that looks cool without having the skills to do it. Rather than somebody has the skills but doesn't have the vision.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, or is attached to your music like you are, you know? And you feel you can find something more easily that fits to your music, or where you can see your music in like the covering up your music in a way, you know.
Right.
Tell me how it felt to play with Ron Carter.
Oh, so sweet. I was a little bit scared, and but no, it was amazing. I was kind of like, wow. I do remember like playing like Ask Me Now or something like that. He played a solo, and he just went into all the little like. Yeah, he was just. I mean, it was just so beautiful to see. He was just. It's just fucking runs going into like triplet time or something, whatever, double, triple, whatever. He's doing all these little, things, all the Ron things, that Ron Carter's do, all the Ron Carter licks that he could play. And yeah, it's beautiful. It was really fun. I was a little bit intimidated, but yeah, it's really fun. Yeah, especially those standards,
Yeah.
Very cool.
Did he give you any notes?
He did give me a little bit of shit. Like there was. So what?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you. Did he give you any advice or any notes or whatever?
Yeah. There was one thing. Was like we had a rehearsal without him, right? Because he was busy, and so there was this tune that had all these like kicks, all these hits, and then Ignaz said, "Let's not really play them like all the time. Sometimes, And then we're in the studio with Ron, and. We were playing the song, and I'm not playing all the hits. And he's kind of like, "Come on, man, you got to play all the hits." And I was like, "Yeah, but we, And then
in the
like,
rehearsal, is it?
But when we played it, yeah. But no, he's super sweet. I mean, he is a very scholarly. In this, I mean, he's that he teaches a lot, right? So and he's a walking lexicon of jazz, So yeah, no, we did all like chat a little bit about Miles band, that band, But yeah, no, it's just it's just really fun and an honor.
Yeah.
As well.
And you guys sounded great together. It's really cool.
Thank you.
How is it for you? Because as I said before, talking about Weave, but we can extend that to you have had such a great influence on a lot of drummers already.
Have I?
I think so. Yeah.
A lot of European drummers. Huh?
Well, the ones that I want to talk about are Europeans, yes. Because if you look at somebody like Jonas Burgwinkel or Christian Lillinger or Fabian Arens, I think they all had their specific Jochen phase and or more various phases of checking you out and really going deep on what you're doing. How is it, or how was it for you then to see those guys work through your stuff, but take it somewhere else maybe? But how was it for you to see that?
Well, okay, so my influence, right, on those three guys, let's say, okay, is obviously if there is any that can be linked. I mean, my influence is again, like I feel like if there's a certain thing I'm doing that they're maybe aware of because they heard me do it, I've heard that I took that from somebody else, So it's not really my influence on them so much as the culmination of all my influences.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So like,
that's how it works.
That whatever. There's some things that Fabian does that are very, that are things that I also do that are very Brian Blade-esque. That I've taken from Brian, imitating Brian. I hear that in him, in a good way. And with Jonas, there's a certain sound thing and a certain thing about there's a few, with Jonas it might be a little bit more like certain figures and stuff, and the way he hits the rim shots, or like he has a lot of rim shots. That's something that he might have heard me play. And with Christian, I'm actually not sure what the influence is there exactly. But me watching that is it's nothing where I'm like, oh, this came. I wouldn't even really think about that, to be honest. I mean, I don't really know what Christian, where all that came from, because it's some crazy shit, Yeah, I mean, that motherfucker is like, whoa, like, Jesus Christ, you hear him play the drums and you're like, there's no drummer that can, that won't be like blown away. Yeah, it's crazy. That's some crazy, like his, it's like he has a new RAM processor, like, and we're still like on a, like a, he has like the new fucking Mac, but we're on like a Atari like 1040 or Nintendo 64. He's got like the PlayStation 7 already, the chip, So yeah, I don't know. I don't really see. Except for that, I'm also German, play jazz. I don't really see so much of an influence in it. Maybe, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I don't know how to put this into a question, or if this is really a question at all. But I've noticed you to be very of younger generations. People who came after you, being very, very supportive, and then taking them under your wing somehow. And yeah,
really?
I don't know. Yeah, I
always thought I was being an asshole.
Well,
no, seriously. Okay. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Tough love. No, I don't know. Am I supportive? I'm just trying to be nice, because we're all musicians, jazz musicians. We're gonna be nice to each other,
How do you deal with having self-doubt? Feeling bad after a show, or after recording, or feeling bad without
alcohol.
any reason?
Yeah, I mean, it's a vast topic. I like many of my colleagues, have like light depression, and in general, it's not a great time. It's not. Yeah. Okay. So being a white drummer from Europe in 2000s, after Tony Williams has happened, is just not going to be good. Like you can just never. There's all these like unattainable, this unattainable greatness sort of hanging over you. I'm at an age now where it's like nothing's really going to happen now. It's not like my career is going to improve. If anything, it'll. I can be happy if I can maintain this. So it is sometimes hard to accept that, and. Yeah, it's a whole bucket of emotions of self-doubt, or sometimes in my case, I'm sort of going back and forth between going like, well, this is really not a level playing field, or it's unfair, or how like sometimes you're like, why is this person more famous than I am, or why is this person busier than I? But then you know, once you zoom out a little bit, the whole thing is just so ridiculously petty, you know, that it's easy to kind of forget about that, you know. But in a way, I also feel like, yeah, I don't think I've like could have done much better than I did, you know. Like, I don't think I'm like, well, I should have practiced more back then or something, you know. Or like, I'm just not a musical genius, like A, B, and you know what I mean? Like, that's what I was gonna say earlier. Sometimes it's like, okay, you know, Kurt Rosenwinkel is also just a human, but like, why does he fucking write so many great tunes? Just, you know. And I don't write tunes like that. Why are his tunes so much better? Yes, he's been writing tunes for like 1,000 years, and you know, but then also there's a certain ingredient there that just like it's gonna have to accept that it's not gonna happen, you know. Like, I'm not gonna start writing like amazing tunes like that, and so I'll have to be fine with that. Just like I'm. Yeah, I'm not gonna be like super rich, or or like a sort of drumming prodigy, but that kind of thing is. Yeah, it's just something that you slowly have to succumb to. That life is just but a freight train speeding towards death, the inevitable, inevitable seizure of seizing of life. And yeah, it is what it is. But I get super dark sometimes. I get depressed, you know, about music career. It's ridiculous. I mean, if you think about it, our job is pretty ridiculous, you know. Like now here they have this thing of unemployment. Everybody gets a certain amount of money. Like for a while they were giving you roughly half of the money that you used to make last year. So if you made whatever, if I declared $2,500 per month last year, now they're giving me half of that. And then for a while they gave us $600 on top a week, right? So I'm just like, wow, this is more money than I ever made in my fucking whole life, right? And so that just shows you how sad that is, like how little we, sometimes I'm like, why, you know, it's like you take the subway, you go to rehearsal, like you download that person's like folder with like hundreds of PDFs and you spend 2 hours listening and looking at PDFs, printing out shit, fucking take the subway and you rehearse for like 3 hours, take the subway back, then you play the gig and then you get $100. You know,
Yep.
100. And or like I go to the supermarket and like now it's like I shop for a family of 3, it's like $200 easy, you know, every few days. It's just so ridiculously badly paid. It's amazing that we're alive. I mean, it's amazing that I'm still, I mean, I guess I got lucky with my family and stuff, but I mean, that's fucking tough, man.
I mean, but
Especially
what gets
this
us
age too.
What gets us through it is the love for the music, right? I mean, otherwise if you just do the math and, you know, unemotional like this, you know, if you just do like, okay, what's the outcome of this operation and all this work and all the printing out and subway rides, you know, like, others don't have that.
Every now and then you have a bad gig and you're like, why? Or you might not love music. That's the moments when you're like, fuck, you know.
Yep. Yeah.
Because those happens, and then also, you know, like, so now I'm 45. There's, definitely, it's not a great age. No, I mean, it's like I was the young guy, you know, I was like super young till like 35. I was like the youngest drummer to ever play drums from Germany, you know. I was eternally like 20 till like 34, and then And then, like I feel like that was kind of like the peak of like my business. I was like playing with Kurt, and I started subbing in like Madeline Peru's band for a little bit. That's by the way why I own an apartment, because she paid as well, and I didn't spend the entirety of my salary on cocaine, and so that's why I'm actually okay, because me and my wife and me bought an apartment back then, and so we've done okay, but since then I've definitely, money-wise, it's definitely gone down a lot, and so that was like 10 years ago. That was like my peak year, 2007. 13 years ago. I think that's what I made the most money I've ever made in my life. Except for now, when I get unemployment. Now I make even more money than that.
It's ridiculous.
Which is ridiculous. I mean, there's a few people like that. There's some waiters and stuff that are like, why would I go back to work? But yeah, so that was only for a few months when they paid this little extra bonus money.
But
yeah, ask me in a year or so.
But being the young guy, I've had the same thing happening to me.
Yeah, you're still the young guy, no?
No, it is no. But
it's gone.
It's gone, I think. But I had it for a long time, and I was so fed up by it. Because you're always referred to as being the young guy or whatever, and that.
Imagine being a woman.
Right.
You're always fucking woman. Melissa Dana, the woman.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Can you imagine how sick she is of that
shit?
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Ooh, it's a woman with a saxophone. Ooh.
Yeah, that's a whole other story, of course.
Get that little saxophone, little girl.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna ask you, weren't you also a little bit happy that the young guy bonus is a little bit worn off after a while?
Yeah, no. Of course, you do realize that then once there's a point where you're a certain age where people like switch their band around to get another young guy, So I lost a lot of work in the last 10 years, and I'm waiting for the age where it's like, oh, Jochen, yeah, he's still playing. Let's get him.
He's still playing, yeah.
Oh, like when Billy Hart, like 15 years ago, I was like, oh yeah, fucking Billy Hart is still playing drums. Let's get him, Let's book a tour for him. I'm waiting. So 15 years, I think, then maybe I can go get it. Jochen, yeah. Oh yeah.
That's the legend bonus then.
Used to play it for $100.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a weird, I guess it's just like a little plateau that you hit, But no, I'm actually enjoying, like right now, just enjoying having a time to write stuff at home. And it's kind of nice in a way. Like, weirdly, I don't have to stress out about money right now. Because usually I do have to kind of stress out about money. And being a band leader, that's a constant fucking nightmare of trying to get the cats paid, trying to keep the bread for the cats high, and so there's no band leading right now. It's fucking awesome, in a way. Like, I don't even have to think about if there's some gigs I could be booking. There's no gigs.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's a nice little break, but only because somehow financially it's okay. I don't have to stress. I don't have to go, like teach kids online or something.
Yeah.
That would be bad. So yeah.
Can we maybe?
What was your question? I forgot.
It's fine. I'm fine with going somewhere else, but it's. Let's maybe close by talking about important concert experience that you've had, witnessing concerts as a audience member. that had a big impact on you, and maybe where you maybe can pinpoint something that you've learned from, or whatever, eye-opening moments. You've already touched a little bit on that,
Yeah, it's really hard to whittle it down. It basically comes down to like seeing somebody for the first time. Almost all, like every jazz legend or something I could talk about. It's like I do remember the first time seeing Elvin Jones or something. It's like, wow, like I only saw him like towards the end of his life, and like me and Hendrik actually, Smock, right? We just got in the car and like followed him around for the summer. He was doing like a little tour. And so that was definitely life-changing, just seeing that person like in that force, or seeing Roy, like I'm just talking from drummer perspective right now, like seeing Roy Haynes play or something, it's kind of like, oh, wow, you know what I mean? And then those gigs, Kurt's band, just seeing that like on a regular basis, just play that kind of music was a big one. Yeah, that's about it. There's a few like classical performances that I saw as a kid that I was like kind of amazed by.
Like what?
Man, I feel like I saw like a Penderecki, one of those like symphonies that ends in like a big C major chord with like 400 people on stage with him directing. I think that I saw that when I was like 15 or something. I was just like, I mean, I was fucking scared of scary music. It's nightmares. But I just remember being like, geez, wow. I was like, you can evoke so many feelings with music, you know? Like, this is crazy. That was kind of like a big moment too. I was like, wow. But yeah, so top of the head, that's all I can think of right now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I remembered another thing. I think when you went to New York the first time, you took a lesson with Bill Stewart, but also with Jeff Tain Watts, right?
Yeah, I took one with him. Yeah.
How was that? How was that for you?
Oh, yeah, Tain is just, he's such a sweetheart, He was so nice. I mean, yeah, he's just like super nice. When I say lesson, I mean, I was basically just went over there to smoke cigarettes and drank coffee and, talked shit. Like, I can't even really remember what I was asking him to, I mean, it was more like a little bit of like a validation thing, like you go and you play a little bit, and he doesn't say like, "Oh, you're fucking terrible." Like that's what you're looking for, It wasn't really like, "Oh, hold the stick this way," or you're doing this wrong or something, But I'm sure he said something, but I can't really even quite remember. Yeah, but he's a total sweetheart. Yeah, he actually gave me a cymbal. He sold me a cymbal for very cheap. Yeah, that was when he was still in Brooklyn. But yeah, I can't really remember.
Yeah.
All I remember is that I was blown away how nice he was. Yeah.
Right. Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jochen. Thanks for doing this with me.
That's it already?
That's it.
That's already it?
That's it, man.
Oh my God, I was gonna go into all the dirty secrets, So.
We can always do a part 2, but
Pat
right now
Metheny.
I have to go actually. But
Okay.
Pat Metheny, go ahead.
Has a flight case. When I played with Pat Metheny, he had a flight case. A flight case full of the same fucking shirt and pants and shoes. Like it was a wardrobe flight case, and it had like 3 times the same fucking shirt and the same pants and the same sneakers, like just lined up. That's it. Ready to be like put on an airplane. I swear to God.
Okay, give me another
That's
one.
weird. is also awesome. No, that's all I can think of right now. That's it. All right. Well, you have a lovely night.
Yeah, you too.
I'll see you in Cologne sometimes. In 8 months, 9 months.
I guess so. Yeah, let's hope for that. Let's play again.
Okay. Thanks, Pablo.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.